Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation about the global economic outlook for 2025 and 2026. Today, we will share prediction bases on recent publication from the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, the OECD, and several academic research papers. Through this talk, I will explain what the world economy will likely experience, what may occur under certain conditions, what might happen if risks materialize, and what could take the global economy in a completely different direction. Global policy uncertainty. Let me begin with one of the most important forces shaping the global outlook, policy uncertainty. According to recent institutional updates, global policy uncertainty remains elevated. Trade tensions, geopolitical conflicts, shifts in fiscal policy, and difference in interest rate strategies across major economies are creating a climate in which governments and firms are reluctant to take big decisions. This level of uncertainty may have significant consequences. For example, firms may delay investment because they do not feel confident about future regulations. International trade flows could slow down if countries adopt more protectionist measures. And consumer sentiment in my economies may weaken, which could reduce consumption. In fact, a large share of downside risks for the global economy is directly tied to this uncertainty. Even if growth continues, it will likely remain below historical averages as long as the key sources of instability persist. Global growth projection. What will likely happen? Now let's move to the core prediction. Global economic growth. The IMF's most recent projection suggests that global GDP growth will be around 3.3% in 2025 and 2026. Even though this is positive, it is still lower than the long-term trend before the pandemic. The world economy today is divided into two very different groups. One, advanced economies, which will likely see slow and steady growth. Number two, emerging and developing economies, which may contribute the majority of global expansion. In other words, most of the world's economic momentum will come from a relatively small number of emerging markets, while many advanced countries may continue to struggle. Inflation trends and monetary policy. Inflation, on the biggest challenge since 2021, is slowing easy. In many countries, headline inflation will likely move closer to central bank targets during 2025. However, core inflation, especially in service, may remain sticky in several economies. Because of that, central banks such as the Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank may choose a more cautious path. While some rate cuts could happen, the pace will depend heavily on data. Several central banks may delay decisions if they believe inflation pressures are not fully under control. Financial conditions and market expectations. Financial markets currently expect that interest rates will gradually decline over the next year. However, this is not warranted. If inflation surprises on the upside or if geopolitical tensions worsen, financial conditions could tighten very quickly. A stronger US dollar, for example, might put pressure on developing economies by increasing the cost of external debt. Many emerging markets still face relatively high levels of borrowing, and a sudden shift in financial conditions could limit their access to capital. Because of these vulnerabilities, capital flows may become more volatile and risk sentiment in stock markets might shift more frequently than usual.
Hey, that's right, Selene. Now let's talk about regional snapshot. Let's now look more closely at the regional predictions. The first one is United States. The US economy has shown remarkable resilience, and it will likely continue to grow at moderate pace. Consumer spending and labor markets remain relatively strong, though growth may slow as a monetary policy stays restrictive. The second one is euro area. Europa faced many challenges: weak investment, energy insecurities, and demographic pressures. Growth may remain below 1.5% for several years. Many European economies may experience slow and uneven recovery. The third one is China. China's recovery is expected to be moderated, even in the property sector, and weaker. External demand may grow cold, remain lower than the average of the past decade. Although some sectors are improving, structural obstacles still remain. The fourth one is India. India stands out. It will likely be the best, fastest growing large economy and might become the biggest contributor to global GDP growth in 2025 and 2026. A strong domestic demand investment make India a key engine of global expansion. And the last one is Latin America. The region outlook is mixed. Some countries could benefit from higher commodity prices, while others with political uncertainty or physical pressures might struggle. Overall growth may be modest and lower than global average. So now we are going to talk about this scenario analysis. That means what could happen. To understand the full picture, we need to consider three scenarios: baseline, upside, and downside. The first one is baseline scenario. That's the most likely. In the baseline scenario, growth will remain between 2.5% and 3.5%. Inflation will gradually ease. Interest rates may decline slowly, and financial markets will remain relatively stable. This scenario assumes no major shocks and moderate improvement in supply chains. This scenario most intuition expects. The second scenario is upside scenario. That's the optimistic. An upside scenario could occur if global tensions is if governments cooperate more, reduce the trade barriers, and coordinate physical strategies. Investor confidence might rise under these conditions. Global growth might increase by 0.3 or 2 0.7 percentage points. Additionally, strong innovation in digital technologies and renewable energy could boost productivity in several regions, especially Asia. The other one is downside scenario. That's the negative scenario. In a downside scenario, the situation could deteriorate significantly. If geopolitics intensifies or if trade protectionism rises sharply, global growth might fall below 2%, possibly reaching the lowest levels outside of recessions. Financial stress in emerging markets could increase, commodity prices might spike, and investment could drop across many sectors. This scenario highlights how vulnerable the world still is to shocks. Okay, now we are gonna talk about key global risks. Let me summarize the main risks the global economy faces. As you can see, we can use a graphic, and we are now gonna talk about these ones. Rising trade and geopolitical tensions could disrupt supply chains, persistent inflation in several countries, financial market volatility, especially in emerging markets, commodity price shocks, which might push inflation upward again, and policy formation, which could reduce cooperation. Any of these risks may shift the global economy from the baseline towards to the downside scenario. We are going to talk about policy implications. Finally, what should policymakers do? Recent research suggests that countries with enough fiscal space should strengthen buffers to prepare for shocks. Central banks will need flexibility. Some cues may be possible, but decision must depend on data. Multilateral cooperation could significantly improve the global outlook. Without cooperation, fragmentation might depend, and global growth could weaken further. These policies are not guaranteed, but implementing them will significantly increase chances of a stable recovery. So to conclude, the global economy in 2025 and 2026 will likely experience modest but positive growth. However, the outlook remains highly uncertain. Many upside possibilities exist, but the downside risks could become more important if tension rise or shocks occur. More of this world growth will come from a relatively small group of countries, and policy markets might face difficult decisions that require balancing stability with long-term investment. Overall, understanding this scenario helps us to prepare for a future that is not predetermined, a future that might evolve in multiple directions depending on the choices countries make today. That is all. Thank you so much for watching this. Bye bye, teacher.